Hello, today we're going to be looking at overtime and how you can calculate a wage that involves overtime hours. So overtime is when you work more than your expected hours. So if your boss asked you to work 5 hours but you stayed back and worked 7, you might be entitled for some extra money because you worked more than you should have. Now normally overtime hours are paid at a higher percentage rate than regular hours. For example, if you go to work on a public holiday when everyone else is chilling at home, you should probably be paid more because you're missing out on your holiday. Alright, let's start things off with an example with someone called Keith. Now Keith earns $30 per hour as a swimming instructor on weekdays. He earns time and a half for any work on Saturday, and he earns double time for Sunday work. How much would he earn for the hours completed below? So to work this out, the first thing I would do is look at the times he has worked. So on Monday and Tuesday, there's dashes, so he didn't do any work there. On Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, he worked 8 hours. Now these are your normal weekdays here. But on Saturday, he worked 4 hours, and on Sunday, he worked 4 hours. So the first thing I'm going to do is just work out how many normal regular hours did he work. So for his normal regular hours, it's $30, which is his normal pay, and there were 3 days where he worked 8 hours. So that's 24 hours there. So 30 times 24 is $720. The next thing we're going to do is look at the Saturday hours here. He worked 4 hours on Saturday, but it's going to be at time and a half. Now, time and a half just means 1.5. So $30 is the normal pay, times 1.5 times 4 will give you $180. Finally, to work out Sunday, he worked 4 hours again, but it's going to be at double time, okay? So double time means twice the normal pay. So if he normally gets $30 an hour, we're going to double it for double time and then times it by the 4 hours he worked, and we'll get $240. So if we add that all up, in total, Keith can expect to be paid $1,140 this week for his hard work. Alrighty, here's another question I'd like to try together. So John earns $25 per hour as a baker on weekdays. He's rostered to normally do 8 hours per weekday. Any overtime work completed on a weekday will earn him time and a half for the first 2 hours and then double time for any additional hours after that. So how much money would he earn for the hours completed below? Now the first thing I'd like to do is work out how many normal hours did he work. So if we look at his normal hours, he's rostered 8 hours per day, we can see that on Wednesday and Friday he worked more than 8 hours, so he's going to get overtime on those days. If we look at Wednesday, we can see that he worked 8 regular hours plus 2 hours extra. Now those first 2 hours will be at time and a half. If we look at Friday though, he's worked 8 normal hours, he's worked 2 hours at time and a half, and those remaining extra hours, because they're more than 2 hours extra, will be at double time. So really it's 8 normal hours, 2 hours at time and a half, and 3 hours at double time. So if we just look at all the regular hours he's worked, just the normal boring hours he's worked, we get 5 lots of 8. 8 times 5 is 40, and 25 times 40 is $1,000. So he'll get $1,000 for his normal hours. When we want to calculate the overtime, all we need to do is look at the purple numbers. How many hours did he work overtime that were in that first 2 hours? So if we look at the 2 purple 2s, we can see that there's 4 hours that are going to be calculated at 1.5 times the normal rate, which will give you $150. Finally, if we want to work out how many overtime hours are going to be charged at double time, well, it's just going to be those 3 extra hours on Friday. So $25 times double the pay times 3 hours on Friday will give you $150. So all up, John can expect to be paid $1,300 this week. Okay, I've created this rather devious question for you to try. So Sally earns $40 per hour as a nurse on weekdays. Any overtime work completed on a weekday, so anything more than 8 hours, earns time and a half for the first 2 hours and then double time for any extra hours after that, just like we did in the last question. Additionally, she earns time and a half for any hours worked on Saturday and double time for any hours worked on Sunday. So this is like a big question where it's mixing together overtime hours plus extra pay for weekend work. So how much would Sally earn for the hours she completed below? So I'd love you to pause the video and give this question a go. If you can answer this question, I'm very impressed because it means you're understanding the process. But give it a go, take away your regular hours first, and we'll see if you can work it out. Okie dokie, let's go through the answers. Now, the first thing I want to do is work out just my regular hours. So just for my mind, I'm just going to ignore the weekends for now, and we're just going to focus on the weekdays. So for the regular hours, we need to remember that if 8 hours is a regular working day, Sally has worked overtime on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. So on Tuesday, she's done 8 normal hours, 2 overtime at 1.5, and 2 hours double time. On Wednesday, she's worked 8 hours normal, plus 2 hours at time and a half. And on Friday, she's done 8, 2, and 1. So we need to clearly see the hours that she's worked. If we look at just the regular hours, we can see that she's done 8 hours regular on each of these 3 days. So $40 times 8 times 3 is going to be $960. To work out the overtime, we're going to look at all the purple numbers we have here. So 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6 hours at time and a half. So this is going to give $360. And to calculate the double time hours, we're just going to look at all the pink numbers we got. She's got 2 hours double time on Tuesday, 1 hour double time on Friday. So that's 3 hours in total. So $40 at double the pay for 3 hours is $240. Now that I've finished all the weekday hours, I want to focus just on the weekend, so I'm going to focus on these 2 numbers again. So, on Saturday, she works 6 hours at time and a half. So 40 times 1.5 times 6 is $360. And for Sunday, we're going to do the same thing. $40 at double the pay for 4 hours is $320. So overall, if you add it up, Sally can expect to be paid $2,240 this week. Okay, hope that makes sense. So whenever you're trying to calculate overtime hours, I suggest you just work out your regular hours first and then do all the overtime separately. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know down below. Have an awesome day.